So, a commentary about what's been happening in the last few days, because I think it's very disturbing, and I think we should all take a lot of attention about what's been going on with this Hoyle nonsense, as I would call it. So, for those of you who don't know, and you must have been asleep if you don't know, Hoyle managed to be manipulated, bullied, whatever you want to call it, by Starmer into giving him a get out of jail free card for the vote on a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. This caused a huge uproar, and he was in a terrible position. So who does he blame it on? Not his own misjudgment, not Starmer for sure. He blames it on the fact that MPs have been threatened. Now, who does that point the finger to? Just think about that. Well, let's go back a bit before this debacle. We had somebody called Martin Daubney, didn't know who he was, but he is a so-called journalist, and he was an MEP for Farage's party. And he posted this little interesting thing about having been with the protesters outside of Parliament and getting egged. That when it was Corbyn being egged, he was like egging it on, so to speak. And that has it in a nutshell. It was quite fine, wasn't it, when it was Corbyn who was being egged, who was being attacked, when it was George Galloway who was being beaten up, almost killed, if you remember, by that crazy Zionist. All of that was okay. When people like me and many thousands of others were being threatened with rape, with murder, that was all okay. When our meetings were being shut down and shut down with bomb threats, that was fine. That was fine. But now, what we see is if you take any, even peaceable action, like being outside Parliament, and yes, like projecting a slogan onto Parliament, they want to arrest you. They want to throw the key away. They want to ban it completely. Of course, no MPs have ever been killed by the left. I'm not even sure, I couldn't find any MPs that have been actually physically assaulted by the left. They've all been killed by the right? But that doesn't matter, because this thing did actually start with Corbyn, but it's not about egging people. It's not about assaulting MPs. I think this is about the war against the left. And unfortunately, Muslims and Palestinians are the losers in this little fight that is going on. How did that start? Well, because when Hoyle wanted to excuse his ridiculous behavior, I mean, it's extraordinary what he did, but when he wanted to excuse it, instead of just saying, look, I'm sorry, I just got it wrong, I thought it would be better for everybody to speak. What did he say? He said, I'm sorry, I got it wrong, but I got it wrong because I was trying to save MPs from being attacked. Okay, now who was that going to point a finger at, given the atmosphere that's out there at the moment, given the media campaign that has been built, not just for pro-Palestinian campaigners, but also, for example, on Just Stop Oil, because what they want to do is to stop any radical action whatsoever. But look at what Hoyle said at the time in Parliament, after he told an MP to shut up, of course, about responding to what he was doing. He was quite spiky then, but what he said was, it's actually because those rules were outdated. Well, okay, maybe he just didn't want to mention at the time that he'd had a meeting with Starmer, because that also seems to have been a bit of confusion, because first of all, nobody wanted to admit there was a meeting with Starmer. And the other thing with Starmer that just leaked out is this astonishing thing that before the vote, and Starmer is talking in the context of the vote, that he rang up the president of Israel. Now, we don't know what he was talking to the president of Israel about. I mean, but I think we can guess. Why would you, as the head of the Labour Party, phone up the president of another country before a parliamentary vote is about to go on? Well, I suppose you'd say, and that's what they will say, if you want to try and make peace, you want to make sure that they're not going to say, not going to pass anything in Parliament that is going to stop the likelihood of that happening. I mean, that's drivel though, isn't it? Because it's quite clear that the Israelis are just going to do whatever the Israelis are going to do. And actually, this vote in Parliament is not really so much directed at the Israelis because they will ignore it, but it's kind of for the whole community. It's for the British public, it's for the European public, it's for the US public, and it's for the Palestinians. But never mind. So he calls up the president, and of course, what does the president say? He says, well, don't put any of that stuff in that in any way blames us. For God's sake, do whatever you can do to undermine that. And then that's what happens. Nice one, Starmer. And then coming into the play is this nonsense with the unhinged actions of Braverman, who is not happy. She's not happy to just let things go. She wants to engender more hatred. And just remember that this is the woman who is a likely contender for the Tory party. I mean, be scared. You need to be scared about this woman. But she actually says, quite specifically, that it's not just the Muslims, it's the left. It's all of these people. And these are who are trying to destroy Britain. Apparently, we're trying to destroy Britain. And that there is an Islamic lobby. Now, the strange thing about it is, of all the lobbies that I can think of the, tobacco lobby, the alcohol lobby, the farming lobby, the countryside lobby, the Israeli lobby. One of the most powerful lobbies, if I was thinking, would not be the Muslim lobby, but that is the one she wants to talk about, even though all of those other lobbies, well, most of them, certainly the Israel lobby, is far more powerful than the Muslim lobby, no matter how you account for it, whether it's financially, whether it's people in position of power and influence who support Israel and its actions. Because it's the left. And that's what this has always been about. It started off with the false anti-Semitism witch hunt, which was never a witch hunt against racists. It was always against the left. What a shame. It's taken people like Owen Jones and others this long to see it for what it is. By the way, Owen, it's time to just apologize for it. And then, let's all move on. So it's not just that, is it? No, this is bigger. What they want to do, their aim is to destroy the effectiveness of the left. So that includes global warming protests. That means any real anti-racism activity. And that certainly includes the awfulness of what's happening in Palestine at the moment, and in particular, the genocide in Gaza. So what can we do about this? Well, the problem is, the further they get into this, the more it becomes absolutely pointless to try and play the parliamentary game. So all of you people who are telling me you're going to vote Labour to get rid of the Tories, do tell me what this is going to do. You've got Starmer basically phoning up the president of Israel before we have a vote in Parliament about something that touches Israel. You've got Starmer, who's quite willing to manipulate a situation to undermine democracy to get what he wants, which is exactly the kind of tactics he's been using inside the Labour Party anyway. You've got a Labour Party who are quite happy to see the left undermined and destroyed. Where are your radical changes going to come? Tell me. There's one way we can get out of this, and that is to build up the amount of independent representation we have, and to continue to take extra parliamentary action, whatever that might be. Rock on, guys. Have a good weekend.